Okay, joining us from Oka on Newsnight for an overview of the Anambra governorship election is Seyi Awojulugbe. Is the West Africa misinformation, disinformation, and hate speech analyst with the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. And also on Newsnight is Austin Aigbe, a Situation Room election expert. Gentlemen, very warm welcome to Newsnight. Maybe I should start with Seyi. Hello, Seyi, if you can hear me. Well, Seyi, gentlemen, Seyi and Austin, I hope they are there. I can't immediately see them in vision.
I can hear you.
But okay, great, Seyi. Oh, beautiful. Now, tell us, I mean, for the first time, you know, an off-season election, IREV or INEC has uploaded more than 90% of the votes cast in the Anambra governorship election. Some marked improvement as observers have reeled out.
Definitely, this is an improvement from what we had in the 2023 election, where that was a nationwide election, and we saw that in that particular election, the upload on IREV was quite slow. In comparison, during the Edo election and even now in the Anambra election, the election upload on IREV has been relatively faster, as at 8:21 p.m., about 98% of the results have already been uploaded on IREV. So that is an improvement compared to what we had in 2023. However, this improvement remains to be tested in the 2027 election when it is nationwide.
All right, thanks very much, I mean, for that submission. Austin, you've been a Situation Room election expert for, for a long part of this democracy. How would you describe the general atmosphere of the election and with collation almost completed?
Thank you very much, Chris. I mean, this is remarkable. It's truly if you have truly followed the elections in Anambra, you would give Anambra election a thumb up. That's the truth. I was in this election in 2017. I was back in 2021 and back in 2025. Arguably, this is more like the most peaceful off-cycle election in Anambra State. In 2017, for those who followed the election, it was almost an election of disinformation where conflict or crisis or conflict, whatever name you want to call it, characterized the election. In 2021, it was more like an election of disinformation, where disinformation created some form of fear in the ecosystem. I mean, in 2017, we saw people wrote on the road, vote and die. But in this election, I saw, remarkably, for the first time, I haven't seen election here in the last 8 years. I saw on the street that even vehicular movement was free flow. I saw markets operating far away somewhere in Oka South, where you have the local government today, the capital city. You have a place called, a local market called Ekioka. As at 10 a.m., the market was like business day, not like maybe it wasn't seen at an election. In fact, the gas station just by the police headquarters was still selling fuel at the time, 9:30, 10. You see, there were people who were ready to vote. Maybe they were still afraid of the apprehension of the 2017, 2021 elections. But to give this election, I would rather say, because I've said it again and again, largely, I don't want to say, or maybe largely, or generally, I don't know the kind of concept to use, peaceful. Peaceful because we've only had a couple of incidents, maybe insecurity, not insecurity, maybe conflict, like a bit minimal. Minimum because usually in an election, you are going to see that kind of argument. People arguing polling units, there's some kind of Nami go vote and you go vote, those kind of things. But the only thing we are tracking at the level of Nigeria Election Situation Room is a report somewhere in Orumba South, where we are told that apparently someone had been killed. we are still yet to confirm it. That is maybe, if it happened, that would be that the only major, when I say major, even though life is very important, but compared to previous election, particularly 2021, where even INEC officials were attacked. But in this election, no. In previous election, these transport workers that INEC usually use to deploy materials, 2021, they gathered at INEC office and refused to move. They renegotiated the cost of movement because they saw the opportunity to renegotiate. In 2017 and 2021, parents left their location all over the state, elsewhere, to move to Oka and elsewhere to pull out their children who were supposed to participate in that electoral process as ad hoc officials. I tell you, that same election in 2021, particularly, INEC was training and redeploying because people that were trained initially did not show up. Very importantly, to point out that Anambra election this time gave it their best. I don't want to even give even though we saw over, as the police have said, 45,000 plus deployment, but beyond that were the people of Anambra who refused to share false information, who refused to amplify those false narratives that characterized previous election, even though there were a bit of disinformation here and there, that partners of Situation Room, SEDEC, and another organization were able to nip it on the board, including sometime around the election that one candidate stepped down. I mean, all of those were nipped in the bud because there were massive mobilization by Situation Room partners in this election. Oh, those that went to the market to mobilize citizens.
Yes, Austin, very good place for you, to rest that submission there so that I can come to Seyi Awojulugbe. Seyi, tell us, the election this year, is it because it's an off-season election? That's why, analysts like you, observers, and all others are saying, oh, very smooth, age-free, no issues of disinformation, misinformation were minimal, security challenges nipped in the bud. Of course, with 45,000 security personnel, is it a good beginning for the new INEC chairman?
Certainly, it's an improvement from where we're coming from, as the last speaker has said. Definitely, the incidences and even the tension that was anticipated ahead of this election has been minimal. The incidences have been minimal, even though we recorded some hiccups here and there, but it's been minimal. It's a good start, if we must say, for the new INEC chairman. It's a good start, and we hope that this can be replicated and even improved upon in the next elections to come in Ekiti, Osun, and even in the 2027 general elections.
And good again to note, from observers, is that the fear of money politics overshadowing our voting pattern in our democracy didn't rear its ugly head this time around. A lot of electoral enlightenment must have gone in for the people, for Anambra, as they say in that part of Nigeria, right?
Well, I wouldn't totally agree with you on that subject, because our observers on the field reported a high incidence of transactional politics, as we call it here at the CDD-ESA. And one thing we actually noticed was that it wasn't just cash that was being exchanged. In fact, we recorded incidences of electronic money transfer, meaning that there's been another level or another skill added to the nature of vote trading. Because you know that in the incidence of vote trading, there must be a willing buyer and a willing seller. So we actually recorded incidences of that. And what we actually also noticed was that the security operatives on ground did very little to deter these practices, as long as in one instance, a security personnel told us that his job is to ensure a calm environment for voting, and so any other thing apart from that is not their business. So as we highlighted in our statement that was released earlier this afternoon, there were quite a number of incidences recorded of vote trading, and if you check, the EFCC has announced this evening that it has arrested 3 people for vote trading, and so that's a testament of the observations that we have earlier made in our submission.
Okay, let me quickly come to Austin Aigbe before we wrap up. Is that the same feelers you got from the fields during the period of these elections compared to 2021 and previous elections in Anambra State? Austin?
So, yeah, what do you mean by feelers? Just to be clear, is it?
I mean, about transactional voting, vote buying, and the rest, as Seyi just revealed that their reports, showed.
Yes. So, you see, if you understand Anambra politics, you will know that I don't know whether it would be possible to actually have an election without some form of vote trading. I mean, historical context I'm mentioning. So, you know that in this Anambra election, a few weeks ago, one of the candidates had mentioned that any ward where he wins in election, there will be a 1 million naira compensation. And where he had first, second, and third, there's a certain amount that's been allocated. So that could be collective vote trading. And that actually happened when you go to certain communities. You see that level of organizing. So they want to win, they want to take the first position because of the 5 million naira tag on it. But beyond that, you had the governor also mention whether somebody is paying this or that, it doesn't matter. But it was more like the highest bidder, whether it was prepaid or postpaid, there was a certain level of trading that has happened. And it's not something that you want to really. In 2017, it was more open than today. Very more open. 2017, cash came to the polling unit. But in this election, not necessarily cash, because you have also seen that there's a learning that with the use of the payment tag. So the ballot papers are flipped in a way that party agent will cite it. Then the buyer, will, the seller, who is a voter, will then pick up a tag and go to a certain location to pick up money. In certain local government, in certain political party, there were listing of names. You vote, so there were listing of names. The voter refused to leave the polling unit until they were paid. So they were there until the votes were counted, and I don't now know what happened, because we have to follow up what happened, whether they were eventually paid and left happily, or there was some form of argument that ensued afterward. So it's something that we continue to deal with, because we are still operating the manual kind of voting where you still need to flip up your ballot paper where they can see and then buy it, because it's see and buy. I mean, that is clearly here, even though there was also prepaid buying with the commentaries I just told you about of a particular candidate who had made that commentary ahead of the elections. So it's something, I mean, it's clear that there's a certain level of failure of government wherein you need to be able to motivate or incentivize monetarily voters to show up to vote, whether for you or against your candidate, your opponent or otherwise. I think it's a bane that the new INEC leadership, particularly the new INEC chair, we need to study to create some level of disincentivization in a way that people, you stop that showing. Former chair of INEC tried to do it, but it's gradually coming back, and we must stop it and nip it on the bud.
I think it's the responsibility of all Nigerians, to stop merchandising our electoral system. I want to thank you very warmly, Seyi Awojulugbe, who is the West Africa Misinformation, Disinformation, and Hate Speech Analyst with the Center for Democracy, as well as Austin Aigbe, an expert in Situation Room Election Analyst. Thanks very much for joining us on Newsnight.